Well, I've started this series last week. That's a good idea, Tom. I started this series last week on being backstage at the Christmas pageant. That's going on right now, backstage. I stole the series idea, okay? Went to the internet, went to my favorite illustration website, typed in Christmas series, and this one popped up. I didn't realize that the second sermon would have to be out of Revelation. And I didn't realize that it had a little drummer boy involved. And I'm going, oh, really? Now, how do I do this? How is this connected? I mean, I went to the guy's website, to find out how he connected it to the little drummer boy and how he connected it to Revelation and how he connected that to Christmas. And I could figure out how he connected it to Christmas, but I'm going, the little drummer boy? Really? I think it comes from, I really was never able to figure it out. I hope the next ones aren't this difficult. I think it comes from the idea that drums were a musical instrument used in times of war. We remember when Johnny Comes Marching Home Again, and I remember watching it on TV and the drummer boys going in front of the battle. I remember them as a call to war. I mean, we associate certain musical instruments with music of war, trumpets, bugles, bagpipes were used in the music of armies. Drums, I think, are there too. And I think that this drum beat from this little drummer boy is calling us to enter the battle and is leading us to enter the battle. But I also think that it fits in with God's call to us in Revelation chapter 12 to join with this great company, this great army, this great battle that is being fought, and to be part of it. As I remember watching the little drummer boy as a child, he had wandered off, but he sees something going on. And he comes and joins in, and God is inviting us to come and join in as well as we participate in this great Christmas story. I think that there had to be a little drummer boy in our Christmas pageant, because not only is this about the town of Bethlehem, but this is about the great conflict of God that was initiated and solved when Jesus Christ came into our world. Christmas looks very different when we look at it through heaven's eyes. When we look at the story of Christmas, we see a little town. We see Mary and Joseph, Mary looking very nicely there, staring down at baby Jesus. She's not wearing blue. Mary always has to wear blue, right? That's what she has to wear. Actually, I think she's got a blue cape on, shawl. We have very specific ideas of what Christmas should look like, but it's always from our culture, always from our tradition, always from Matthew and Luke, where it should come. But we also need to look at Christmas through heaven's eyes, and that's what we have in the book of Revelation. Revelation offers us this heavenly perspective of what happened when Jesus Christ was born. From heaven's perspective, the birth of Jesus is a declaration of war. It was a declaration of war, and it was a solution to the war. It was also the culmination of the war when Jesus Christ was born. Now we start the section today looking at a different perspective on who the mom is in the story. The mom in Matthew and Luke is a meek and mild Mary, who was chosen, most highly favored of all women who have ever lived on this planet. And we look at her, but the Mary, the mother of the Jesus in Revelation chapter 12, is different. John is explicit right at the beginning in verse 1. He tells us that he is dealing with symbols. He's not dealing with the reality of who Jesus' biological mom was, but he is dealing with symbols as he's moving through talking about this war that he is going on about. Both the women and the dragon are both signs. And he says that very explicitly. These are not human beings. These are signs. This woman is a mom, And somehow she is the ancestor, the antecedent of all the faithful bride of Christ. All the believers, as we see as we read through this chapter, are descended from her, and she gives birth to them all. So we're obviously not looking at Mary. This mother, I believe, is the true Israel. Is Israel who believed in Jesus Christ. We use the word true Israel from our study in Romans. I believe that this mom is Israel, who had all of the advantages of the prophets and the law of Moses. They had the revelation, they had the covenants, they had the signs, they had everything, and that has given rise to the church, to the descendants of this mom. Nowhere in the book of Revelation is Mary mentioned. But this mom, I believe, is true Israel, whom God invested with all the covenants, and mentioned in all of these verses that she was the mother in the Old Testament. The perspective has changed. We're not talking about earth anymore. We're talking about this war in heaven. We're talking about what Christmas means from heaven's eyes. Now that we have identified the mom in our story, we must also identify the labor pains, and we also must identify who the dragon was, and especially the dragon, because the dragon is also called a sign. God promises that suffering pregnant Israel, that she will bear the new life of the resurrection. God promised that in Isaiah chapter 26. That life that comes through the resurrection would come through Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ was born out of Israel. On the day of God's wrath, God was going to come down and resurrect Israel, resurrect believers, resurrect His kingdom and His people, the bride of Christ, and He would destroy the serpent according to Isaiah chapter 26. John again tells us that he's speaking symbolically of a sign. He's telling us that this is symbolic of what's going on in the world and what God is doing behind the scenes. Now, the dragon is identified especially as that ancient serpent. And that drives us back to Genesis chapter 3. In Genesis chapter 3, we read the story of Adam and Eve facing the serpent, and how Eve was deceived, and how Adam chose to follow after his wife, and they fell, and they were enticed into disobeying God. But that isn't all of what John is implying in this symbol. These associations with Adam and Eve and with that serpent aren't all the story. Because this idea of a dragon and this idea of a mom were widespread in the Old Testament as well as in the ancient Near East. The Old Testament links the dragon with all kinds of enemies. All kinds of enemies. Egypt was called a dragon. Babylon was called a dragon. They were all these enemies that Israel faced, enemies that face believers in every generation were identified with this dragon. There were stories told in the Greek and Roman worlds about dragons and pregnant women. I don't think I've ever read a story about dragons and pregnant women. I mean, it sounds kind of crazy to me, but in that world, there were lots of them, actually. In the Roman world, the empire, in most of the stories that we're told, the empire was the mom, and the emperor was the son, the world savior. And they used that word. They used the word savior for this political figure, this military figure. And John is going to use these stories, these associations, and say, no. The military can't save you. The political world can't save you. The economic world can't save you. Jesus Christ is going to have to come and save you. He is the child, and Israel is the mom. In John's vision, Jesus alone is there to solve the world's problems. Jesus alone is there to solve the deep problem of sin, and Jesus alone will destroy the dragon. The emperor was simply another puppet of the dragon. Something that we need to keep in the back of our minds. This world cannot solve our problems, and the dragon, Satan, will use everything to try and deceive us into following